Hey there, my name is Tyler and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at PaperCut. PaperCut Hive's print queue deployment feature is a great way to enable your users with both Find-Me and direct print queues quickly and easily, no matter the computer your users are printing from. You can send these queues out quickly with a PaperCut made driver right out of the box, or you can enable your users with the extra power of a manufacturer driver to take advantage of some of the more advanced features a printer might have. Today, we're going to be working together to see and experience our print queue deployment process from start to finish. We're going to start by getting our printers discovered and ready to go in PaperCut Hive. We're going to clone some drivers up, and then we're going to add those drivers to print queues in our PaperCut Hive environment. Once we've talked through how drivers work in PaperCut Hive, we're going to deploy these queues out to our users with 3 different deployment rules. One focused on the Portland office here, based on its network address. One focused on specific labs within the Portland office that we use for testing. And one specifically for Dave here, because Dave loves his desktop printer. Once we get these rules set up, we'll see what it looks like on the end user's computer, so we know what to look out for when getting things set up and running. Now, I've got a few laptops here to get things set up and tested. So first up, let's get our drivers. Now, the first step of this process is to make sure that PaperCut Hive has discovered our printers to begin with. We will do this automatically in the background, but if you haven't seen your printer turn up, you can give us some pointers by either creating a queue for that printer or targeting it specifically with the Discover Printers menu in the Printers section of the admin interface. So you can go here, you can click Discover a Printer, enter the IP address of any particular device that you have on your network, and then just hit Continue. Then you can select a device that is going to target that printer. It's going to send some SNMP queries and then check to make sure that it can print, that it is actually a printer, that it supports all of the page description languages we need, and update its record in Hive accordingly. So first up, we're going to get the Find-Me print queue for the Portland office here set up. This is going to apply to our fleet of x64 Windows devices, a couple of ARM devices we have, as well as our Mac OS fleet. So we're going to need drivers to address all 3 of these client options. Let's get started with an x64 computer and get the driver cloned up from there. So what I'm going to do is switch over to an x64 Windows device, get a queue set up, and make sure that it's ready to go for Hive to pull all of the information for. All right, so now we're going to navigate to the print management interface on this device. You can see here I have a couple of queues already set up. This has already been installed with the Edge Node services and everything, so you can see our PaperCut printer is there and ready to print. But you can also see this queue, Clone the Xerox. That one is going to be the queue that we're going to use as a reference for our Find-Me queue in this office. If we click into this printer, you can see the printer properties, and we can just check on the driver details to make sure that everything is good. Now, bear in mind, when we clone things, we also copy the default information for that driver. So if you want to encourage good behavior for your users by defaulting your queues to grayscale or duplex, set that now in order to make sure that it applies to all of your users' computers later. You can see here that this queue is a standard TCP IP port on this computer. Now, that's an important thing here because that's the type of queue that Hive is going to be looking for on these Windows devices. If you have a Mac device, we're looking for HP Jet Direct. The good news is it doesn't specifically have to be pointed to this printer. So, if you're off network, pre-configuring these printers for your customers later, you can set these up and clone from your computer, and it's no problem. We don't need to actually communicate with the printer in this process. So you can see that here. We'll move over to the advanced port and confirm we've got the Xerox Global PostScript driver assigned to this queue. I'm going to check on my printing defaults real quick, and we're going to make sure that it defaults to black and white. I'll hit apply, OK. And now we're pretty much ready to clone. So let's head back over to our Hive admin interface. Now that we're back in the Hive admin interface, we're going to select the print queues section. Here, we're going to create a print queue. So because this is the Portland office Find-Me queue, we're going to call it PDX Find-Me. This is going to be a Find-Me queue, so we'll need to select that in the print queue type. If we leave it on direct, that means no hold release will be applied, and it will be targeting a specific printer. So you can see we've got the 3 sections for our 3 different client types here. We've configured our x64 device, so let's go ahead and add a driver there. We'll click Upload New Driver to make sure that we're activating the cloning workflow instead of reusing a driver from another time we've cloned before. Click Continue here. My conveniently named cloner PC is the one we're going to be pulling this driver from. And it'll load all of the queues that are installed on this device that match that TCP/IP rule that we're looking for. So you can see there's my clone the Xerox. The driver name is the Xerox PostScript driver there that we found in our preferences menu. We'll select that queue and we'll hit Select Print Queue at the bottom right corner there. Then you can just hit Add the driver. Now, we don't have a ton of ARM64 devices here in the office, but we will want them to be supported. For this is a great opportunity for our PaperCut global PostScript driver to be added to this queue. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Add a driver, and I'll just select the PaperCut global print driver. This is going to get all of our ARM devices set up with that kind of baseline functionality. They'll have all of the core features of the printer that they're looking for, but because it's not an enormous part of our fleet, I don't really need to worry about cloning up a fully featured driver. And then finally, we're going to add a driver for macOS. Here, we're going to actually reuse a driver from our previous cloning activities. So you can see copy an existing print queues driver here at the bottom. We'll give that a select, and we will find my laptop here. All right, so I've searched for the queue name, and I found the global PostScript queue that I cloned off of my computer a couple of days ago. I'll go ahead and hit apply, and you can now see that we have all of these drivers set up and ready to go for this queue. Next up is to limit this queue to just our Portland office here. Our Melbourne office and our Portland office are going to share an IP range, but they're separate networks. So we're going to use the MAC address feature to actually get this specifically targeting only the users here in this office. So let's go ahead and click Use Deployment Rules, and we're going to create a new rule. We're going to click Limit to Network, and we're going to call this Limit to Portland Office. When we click Manage Networks, we have the chance to create new networks or reuse ones that we've already defined in previous rules. Because this is a pretty new Hive org, we haven't made any networks just yet, so let's go ahead and give that a go. I'll call this the PDX Office LAN, and we're going to enter our subnet information. And you can click Limit to Specific Gateway to address that subnet duplication across the locations. Now to find this information, I'm going to pull up a quick terminal window and use a simple ARP command to get the MAC address of our modem router gateway here. So we'll just type in ARP, and we will type in the address of our gateway. And you can see here it is. We'll go ahead and give that a copy, and then we're going to pull that into the gateway MAC address field here. Now, Mac likes to kind of abbreviate these things where there are duplicate letters or where there's load-bearing characters, like 01 is represented as a 1, 00 is represented as a 0. So leading zeros are removed with Mac. We'll just add those zeros back in. All right, now that the format check is happy with our MAC address, we'll go ahead and click Save. The rule is done. We don't really need to specify any of the others, although we could if we wanted to. We're just going to save it for now. So let's go ahead and just review this queue really quick to make sure everything's in order. We've got the PDX Find-Me name. It is actually a Find-Me queue. It has a driver for all three of our client types, and we've created a deployment rule to specifically target the office here in Portland. That's looking pretty good to me. So we will click Yes, Deploy Now. And for the admin notes, I'll just drop a little comment for our Melbourne friends to let them know that I'm out here making changes to our printers in Portland. All right, we'll click Save and Deploy. And just like that, our Find Me queue should be out and about, ready to be used by anyone in our Portland office. We'll get back to that later, but let's go ahead and address those other two queues we talked about at the beginning of this video. We're going to create another print queue, and this time we're going to be calling it the Portland Lab. Now, this is just a couple of little devices that we have that need to target a specific printer for testing purposes. So it doesn't need a whole lot of configuration. We're going to use a hostname rule in order to target the lab computers, which all follow the same kind of naming metric here in our network. This is going to be a direct queue, so we'll just get that set up by default, and we'll target the one printer that this needs to apply to. So we've got the name entered, we've got the direct queue selected, and we're going to select the printer here. So this is a Ricoh IMC 2000. We're just going to go ahead and select it here from our discovered list of printers. Since the printing needs of this lab are pretty simple, we're just going to go ahead and use our PaperCut global PostScript for all of the available devices. This lab doesn't use Mac, so we won't need to worry about that. Now we'll go ahead and hit Use Deployment Rules again, and we're going to create the rules that target the host names that match the regex of our kind of naming format here. So go ahead and select Limit to Host Names, and you can type in pdxlab dot asterisk. So that's just the regex for, an open match, any characters, any number of times. So that should, typo there, that should get all of our lab computers targeted and ready to go with this testing printer. All right, going to save that, and we're going to deploy now. Cool. So we're breezing through this. We've got two of our queues deployed, but now for the most important, Dave's personal printer. Okay, let's get that one set up here. Let's create a print queue one more time. You kind of know the drill by now. We're going to give it a name. And we're going to select that printer that he loves so very much. All right, so we've selected the printer. It's a direct queue, and we're just going to get a Mac driver set up for him there. Dave is a Mac user, so we only need to go ahead and run through this cloning process one more time. All right, we've got my laptop here. We'll select that, and we should see a new queue available to pull in. Hey, a queue for cloning. That's convenient. All right, we'll add the driver. We'll hit Deploy Now. And we're going to use the new deployment rules to just specifically target Dave as an individual user. All right, there he is. We'll hit Save. Oh, I forgot my rule name again. All right. And I'll make sure people know not to touch this one because it's so darn important. Okay, we're going to save, and just like that, all three of our queues are now out and ready to be used by our users. So let's go ahead and move over to our client computers to see this in action. First up, our x64 Windows computer. Okay, so you can see here that we are actually done so quick that the queue hasn't even deployed yet. You can see we have the PaperCut printer, which means that the device has been set up with PaperCut, and you can check our system icon here to know that the user is all signed in and ready to go. So what we're going to do is go ahead and click Refresh My Printer List to make sure that that new print queue that we should have is available. So we'll wait just a sec here while it goes and asks the cloud for new information. And just like that, the PDX Find-Me queue is now installed and ready to go. Now we can open the printer properties here, and we're just going to go ahead and check the advanced tab to make sure that our driver is there and that our defaults are applied. So you can see there is the Xerox Global PostScript driver, and we can hit printing defaults, and we'll just double check. There is our black and white saved as the default, just like we cloned up. All right, so this queue is ready to go. That's a successful deployment on Windows, and we even got to use our new system tray icon to make sure that the latest and greatest printers were pulled to this printer right away. Okay, so we've confirmed that our Find Me queue is working, but let's go ahead and steal Dave's computer real quick to make sure that direct queue is set up for him too. Let's go ahead and go to the System Settings app, and then we're just going to go and check in on our printers list. Hey, there it is. Dave's printer successfully installed while we were configuring our other queues. He has the PaperCut printer that's installed by default, and he has the new PDX Find-Me queue that we created earlier. Just to make sure things are all set up correctly, let me go ahead and open up the Cups interface to check on how this queue is configured. All right, we can see that the Dave's printer object here has the correct driver that we have cloned up. But let's go ahead and click it because there's going to be something kind of interesting about this print queue. You'll see that this is an HTTP connection to the local host. Even though this is a direct print queue, we're still going to be bouncing it off of the local edge node service, which is running on this computer. Now, that is basically going to allow us to add some really cool features later down the road, but just know that this is totally normal and it's actually a feature of how we install these drivers. And there you have it. We've just deployed an x64, an ARM64, and a macOS driver to all of our users here in the Portland office. We got that ARM device set up in our lab, and we got Dave his wonderful, beautiful desktop printer all configured and ready to go. It was just that easy. I'm so glad to have you here, and I really appreciate your time. But if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out because we love talking about this stuff. Thanks.